It's been a week since our community was hit by a devastating storm.
But the size and scale of this is not something that we imagined.
The impacts of which will be felt for generations.
We went in about knee deep and everything was just floating.
So water line, we measured yesterday, it was 96 inches.
A lot of people are hurting.
Just waiting to hear something about losing someone and that's been a hard.
Now 1 week later, we still don't know how many are dead.
Surviving this when so many people didn't, I ain't got nothing but to thank God.
Thousands are still without power.
No power, no light.
An untold number of homes, roads, and bridges.
Lake Lure, it honestly looks like an atomic bomb went off.
All washed away.
These people are still in desperate need of food and water in these harder hit areas.
Thank you for joining us here on WCNC Plus. I'm Colin Mayfield. Over the past week, we have heard some of the harrowing stories of survival from students at App State in Boone. They barely made it out as floodwaters overwhelmed them just across the street from campus. WCNC Charlotte's Michelle Bowden spoke with one student who only got out thanks to some strangers who came to her rescue.
There are so many stories like this, one more unbelievable than the next. In this case, these 4 roommates were first trapped in their car, then one was almost taken away by the current.
The video is quick but terrifying.
Okay, just go. Keep going.
My car's not going.
Okay, then we need to get out.
We're like, oh no, we need to get this door open.
4 App State roommates trapped in a car, the water rising around them.
The car was filling in with this murky brown water, so I had no way to, reach into my dashboard or my glove compartment and grab my window breaker. I couldn't see anything. Nobody could see anything.
It was Friday mid-afternoon when there was so much rain so fast, App State sophomore Avery Panner realized she needed to get her car to higher ground. Her roommates all went with her.
A tree fell down right on top of my car, and we couldn't get back that way, so we were forced to move forward, and my car starts sinking into the mud underneath. At this point, the water level is to the top of the door, right before you would open the windows. My windows weren't going down, so it's not like we could just come out through the windows.
The water started coming into the car and fast.
So it takes all of us to push one of the front doors open, push through the mud that my car is sinking into, and we all just climb out through this door.
But the worst was still to come.
And I just remember the rip current coming from the water. It was like whitewater rapids. It was something you would never imagine. And it sweeps me from underneath my feet.
Thankfully, a group of guys, students, strangers came running to help.
Everyone is grabbing onto my leg so I don't, go down into the creek, or, go off into the current. They are trying to hold on to their dear life for me, but I am sweeping off into the water.
They managed to hang on and all get through the water to higher ground, to safety.
But I firmly believe that something very terrible could have happened to me if it wasn't for these random people coming to save us. And it was just completely unreal. It was life-changing. It's something I won't forget.
So far, App State has only said that classes are canceled this week. Just as soon as we get more information on that, we will pass it along. Reporting in Charlotte, Michelle Bowden, WCNC Charlotte.
Now, we've heard from other students at App State and across our entire area after they were impacted by Helene. Nick Sturdivant spoke to one who says she's lucky to be alive after a tree slammed into her apartment building just feet from her bedroom.
Winifred Ray Unruh says she's grateful.
I just turned 21 on Tuesday, so it's I didn't really think I'd be moving back home at this time in my life.
Because while turning 21 didn't go as planned.
Seeing the tree, it looked like a movie, it just looked like a movie prop, it didn't look real.
She was feet away from potentially losing her life. The Appalachian State University senior says she heard a loud noise early Friday morning as Helene ripped through the area.
So I got to my front apartment door and I open it and there's just a tree.
Moments later, after first responders arrived, Winifred and her 2 roommates quickly started packing as water leaked into their unit at the Mountaineer Village complex.
Our neighbors across from us, the tree went through his bedroom, completely through his bedroom. So he's lucky to be alive, honestly, but it's insane. And it's kind of crazy because it was either me or him that would have had the tree in our bedrooms.
After staying with friends and then a family member in Boone, Winifred was able to make it back to Cary Wednesday evening. She says her apartment is now condemned.
And have you been able to process any of that?
No, especially since, like, you know, I've been reading stuff and it's like we're at an elevation of 3,333 feet and we got a hurricane.
Right now, App State says it's continuing to assess and respond to damages at its Boone campus as the school works to provide resources to students, staff, and the community. The school says there are about 1,000 students still on campus, out of the more than 6,000 that live in residence halls.
They're all very relieved that I'm okay and that all my roommates are okay and that our neighbors, like, who got the brunt of the tree are okay. But I think we're all just anxious about, like, what the university is going to say.
And as we begin to hear these stories of survival, we're beginning to get a sense of some of the critical decisions made for those caught in the midst of the storm. And for a pair of brothers, one of whom I spoke to, it was life or death as they sat on top of a mountain in Ashland.
My main goal was to get to my wife because I wanted, I just wanted her to be safe. We knew the storm was coming, but we didn't think that it would affect the area that we were in as it did.
Kyle and Corey Vargas found themselves in the middle of a torrent of rain and wind in an Ashe County home.
I was looking out the window. I could just see trees falling. And I was like, man, I hope the trees don't block the driveway because we won't be able to get out.
After surviving overnight Thursday and into Friday, the Vargas brothers contemplated their best strategy to try and make it out alive. Their best opportunity didn't come until Saturday.
By the time the sun rose the next day, we decided that we were going to leave since we could see. We had to walk through mud because of the landslides that washed away from the mountain onto the street. The streets were flooded at the bottom of the mountain. The driveway was about a quarter mile long from where the house was to the bottom of the mountain.
The brothers say they trekked for hours, nearly 13 miles, without cell service, all while Kyle's wife attempted to leave Friday night from Atlanta to meet them somewhere in the middle on Saturday.
We got to a church and we had service at the church, and I was able to contact my wife, send her my location. Car started walking towards us a few miles, and thankfully a guy came through in a Jeep Wrangler with his family and gave my wife a ride to us, and we were able to ride back to her vehicle.
The family made their way west somehow to Tennessee, first through Boone, and found service very briefly. That allowed them to reach out to his mother, who sent directions on how to find I-85, ultimately leading them back to Atlanta.
I had no fear whatsoever. Like, even once we got down the driveway and we were climbing over the trees, walking through the mud.
Now, Vargas says if it wasn't for the resilience of complete strangers, both in his rescue and his wife's, they're not sure they would have found one another. Rutherford County was hit extremely hard by Helene. A massive search by land, air, and water continues this week to find those unaccounted for. Still, WCNC Charlotte's Caitlin Hagwood spoke with the team behind the search.
Crews here are in a race against time, working around the clock to find and rescue missing people, even bringing in dive teams in and around Rutherford County to try to help. And as they do, they face limited cell service, power, and destroyed roads in the search for those in need. What was once a gathering place for friends and family is now a scene of utter devastation. These images taken by first responders show what's left in the Chimney Rock area after Helene brought historic flooding, destroying roads and turning businesses into rubble.
Lake Lure, it honestly looks like an atomic bomb went off. A lot of that debris that came out of the Rocky Broad is now collected in Lake Lure, and most of the surface is covered in wood and other debris that came down through that corridor from the Rocky Broad.
From the Emergency Operations Center in Forest City, Rutherford County Manager Steve Garrison supports the response alongside the National Guard, Sheriff's Office, and more.
We're still trying to do recovery. There's a lot of homes up there covered in mud, and we're working through the area right now, still trying to comb through.
Outside of the terrain, one of the biggest challenges has been connectivity, with power and cell service hard to come by.
Our mobiles are almost ineffective. Email, all the things that we use for those communication tools have been down.
They've been relying on radio and Starlink services to help, working around the clock to bring families home.
We're hopeful that we'll still receive some additional text or phone calls into our 911 center for folks that are still up there. We love where we live, and these folks are just like family here. So it's been extremely difficult. But that's what keeps us going and driving to improve the situation.
With some roads still impassable, officials say we've only just begun to see the devastation caused by this storm. Reporting here in Rutherford County, Kaylin Hagwood, WCNC Charlotte.
And one of the hardest hit areas here in the Charlotte area was Mountain Island Lake. That as floodwaters moved from the mountains down through the Catawba River. Here's WCNC Charlotte's Anna King.
We knew that lake levels were high. We knew that rain was coming in the mountains, but the size and scale of this is not something that we imagined.
Some residents along Riverside Drive in Charlotte salvaging what they can, while others forced to move on.
Some structures that were completely removed from the land into the water, and so some homes just have the foundation left.
After Duke Energy opened the floodgate to relieve water pressure at Cohen's Ford, water rushed through this neighborhood, knocking down trees, destroying homes, pulling down power lines, and leaving many without a clue on what to do next.
I couldn't even tell you. There's so much that's gone that you can't really even think about. You kind of just compartmentalize what you can save.
Evidence of around 12 feet of water sitting in some homes, leaving many with almost nothing to hold on to.
That's the main things is the tools and photos. Those are really all that kind of survived, to be honest. Everything else is gone.
Emergency crews say it won't be easy for residents here to get back on their feet.
It'll take years for many of these folks to be able to recover fully.
And they're asking for help in the meantime.
It's important to help our neighbors in Asheville and Hendersonville and other places, but there is damage and people that need help here in Charlotte.
As cleanup efforts continue, a Mount Holly teacher also working to pick up the pieces. Flooding from Helene almost completely covering her home. She told our Tradisha Woodard that her family now has no place to call home.
A home nearly swallowed by water.
It was shoulder deep in our house.
Washing away the years of history that lives inside. For Macy Lambert,
No words.
beautiful memories now marked by the toughest stains.
So my dad was raised there, I was raised there. We've been there as long as we can remember. We went in about knee deep and everything was just floating. And when we hit my daughter's nursery, that's when we lost it. All her toys just floating.
Lambert and her family leaving with nothing but the clothes on their backs to safely escape the waters.
Once it hit the front yard, we were like, we got to get out.
While they managed to escape, Hurricane Helene costing them what was left. Everything.
Devastation. We were up on higher ground in our camper and we just sat. That was the only thing we could do was just sit and watch it rise and just watch the stuff float by.
Lambert is a special needs teacher, a job that entails hope and inspiration. Now her community returning the favor.
People are reaching out that we don't even know, and that's just the biggest thing.
Lambert says as they continue to push through these dark times, the community's support helping them find beams of light.
We're so grateful.
Her 1-year-old daughter depends on it.
I could not be more proud and blessed for the community that we have.
In the days and weeks leading up to this destructive flooding downstream of Mountain Island Lake, a WCNC Charlotte investigation found that water levels exceeded Duke Energy's own targets. That left homeowners wondering why the utility didn't drop Mountain Island Lake's levels in advance of Helene. One homeowner told our Nate Morabito that inaction by Duke Energy has harmed the people of Riverside and Lake Drive once before, and not that long ago, too.
We had 6 feet of water in the house. We lost everything we had.
After floodwaters destroyed Eric Jendrison's home in 2019, the homeowner learned a valuable lesson.
We missed water incursion by about 8 inches.
That, as the waters rose even higher this time around, spared his new house.
It puts me into a really unusual position because this entire community, every single one of my neighbors, have lost everything. And I'm the only one really standing.
He's speaking up on behalf of his hurting neighbors.
It's inconceivable. I don't understand it.
Convinced Duke Energy allowed history to repeat itself.
Anybody who wants to say that this was an act of God, well, it had an active accomplice in Duke Energy as far as I'm concerned.
The homeowner was one of several dozen who sued the utility after the 2019 flood, alleging negligence, accusing Duke Energy then of failing to lower dam levels to accommodate the expected heavy rainfall, among other things. He says they eventually arrived at a settlement that was satisfactory to both parties. But back then,
I know that this kind of thing doesn't need to happen again.
even the governor raised concerns and pledged to look into the situation. Despite all that, now in 2024, the utility's own data show Mountain Island Lake's levels stayed above its target for the entire month of September.
Why aren't the lake levels being lowered precipitously ahead of an event like this?
In response to WCNC Charlotte's questions, the utility insisted creating any additional storage in Mountain Island Lake ahead of time would not have prevented the flooding, citing the lake's small size coupled with the historic rainfall. In a statement to WCNC Charlotte, the utility said as soon as they anticipated Hurricane Helene's arrival and its significant rainfall, Duke Energy's hydro operations team began moving water through the entire 11-lake system, adding the utility must take a holistic approach because a decision at one lake can impact the others.
Duke Energy told us it does the best it can to mitigate the impacts of severe weather events, but did point out forecasting actual inflow from an approaching storm is a complex and inexact science. So I had our team of meteorologists here at WCNC Charlotte look back at their data to analyze this storm and sat down with Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich earlier this week to walk through the science behind what exactly happened. All right, so Brad, obviously Helene had huge impacts to our area. A lot of folks have been asking about, the Carolinas, why they were hit so hard. You know, we knew the storm was coming. You guys forecasted it. We talked about this potentially being a historic event.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
It's one of those things, you look back last week at this time. I remember about Tuesday last week, one of the first graphics we made, I had extreme rainfall, okay? And it's the brightest color we use. It's the most extreme word we use. I mean, you could see that, all that area shaded in pink. But here's the problem, even in hindsight, I look back at that wasn't even extreme enough. It's like our best words and colors that we use to explain how bad something is gonna be, it was even worse. We were really grasping for ways to describe this. When I talk about 20 to 30 inches of rain, a lot of people have no idea how to visualize that.
Yeah.
We're really used to what 20 to 30 inches of snow looks like, right?
True.
But rain doesn't fall like snow. It doesn't fall and just accumulate on the ground. It runs off.
Yeah.
So rain does one of three things, right? It absorbs into the ground, it evaporates, or it runs off. And so what happened last week, Tuesday, Wednesday, even early Thursday, we had something called a predecessor rain event. And I actually started talking about this last Wednesday, where we had rain that wasn't even associated with Helene.
Yep.
We had a stalled front, we had all this moisture over us, and that put down 6 to 12 inches of rain. So when Helene hit on Thursday night into Friday, it put an additional 6 to 12 inches on top of that. And the problem was those three ways that rain goes in, absorption, evaporation, runoff, we had no absorption, we had no evaporation, it all ran off.
Right down the mountain.
And so now we had all this water going into these valleys, and you had the record rainfall. So in many ways, it's like it was a pretty well forecast storm, but it was hard to communicate.
Right.
Like that this level of destruction. Imagine if I went on last Wednesday, guys, whole mountains will be gone, whole towns, all this stuff.
Nobody would have listened.
People would not have believed me.
No.
They would have been like, that guy is crazy.
Right. Fearmonger, right?
Yeah. So it's from that standpoint, I've said this for years, we're really good at forecasting weather. We still struggle with the communication.
Yeah.
A part of it. It's the most difficult part of my job.
Yeah, well, and I think, we were talking about that precursor event, right? Yeah. Trying to put it in perspective. I mean, 24, 25, 26 feet cresting. I mean, as you said, it is tough. I remember the Weather Channel making a graphic. I think it was Cantori standing in it, and you can see behind him the surge.
Yeah.
Really, that's the only type of way that you can visualize these things before they happen.
It's a good point. We need that for water and river flooding inland. We have that for storm surge because people have really hit home on that.
Right.
But you make a good point. We related this to the 1916 and the 1940 flood. Colin, there's not a lot of people left from that area. So there's nobody with the memory of what this looks like. And in some cases, the 1916 flood, we surpassed, over in Asheville at least, French Broad River area, by 30 feet.
That's wild.
Okay? It wasn't like, hey, we broke the record by a foot or two. I mean, so I talked to a guy today when we were out in Concord, and he was like, I drive by that bridge every day and I see how low the water is. I figured it'd be high, maybe to the bottom of the bridge. I didn't think it was going to go then twice as high as the bridge.
Right.
It's like that didn't even seem like it was possible.
Right.
And so that was the biggest problem with this storm. It was just hard. And our mountains and just the way our geography and topography set up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is a very susceptible area for flooding. This is probably going to happen again.
Okay.
Maybe not in our lifetime, Colin, but it will happen again at some point.
And I think you made a good point. I want to just point this out because I think the way that we cover these storms needs to change.
Yeah.
You were talking a little bit about everybody goes along the coast. While that is understandable, I think we have, hopefully we've learned our lesson.
Yeah.
We need to place people inland, no matter if it's in the mountains. I mean, it could happen here in Charlotte, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we get 20, 30 inches of rain. Certain parts of Charlotte would be underwater.
I agree completely. It's nothing to like against, because people don't do it on purpose, but it just gives a perception like, oh, everyone's at the coast.
Right.
Nothing's going to happen inland. And we learned, unfortunately, in our area, we've learned our lesson many times. Florence, Hugo, now Helene, that hurricanes hit inland. They cause big problems inland, and we need to take them seriously all the time. And trust me, I don't think anyone's ever not going to take these seriously again because of what happened with Helene.
Especially not in the Carolinas.
No,
that's
absolutely.
for sure. Asheville was one of the hardest hit areas, and no doubt about that. Flooding from Helene covered most of the Biltmore Village area for days. Tevian Whitehurst has more as the water has now receded.
I'm here in Biltmore Village, where just a couple days ago, this place was inundated with trees and mud and debris, and businesses were in pieces, both physically and emotionally. Now, when you look around town, you see a lot more clearing and a lot more movement. Ashevilleans are getting to work simply by clearing up and supporting each other. It's definitely going to take a long way, and things are just starting to look up, but not everyone's quite there yet.
Life here is starting to come back, but it's still a struggle because as gas stations open back up and traffic lights come back on, that's great, but you're still going home to no power, no light.
But as neighborhoods and businesses alike begin to clear the rubble, you see determination, optimism, and unity. I asked that same man if he felt that from his community.
Does the community feel stronger than normal?
It does. No, this is how Asheville has always been, but it feels stronger. So it feels like we've taken another step, and I'm happy with that.
Everyone knows, both inside and outside of town, that this recovery is going to be a long process, but Ashevilleans are far from giving up hope, and that applies to the whole region too.
This week, families have been doing what they can to reunite. One family drove from Wilmington to Asheville to rescue their daughter. WCNC Charlotte's Julie Kay spoke to that girl's stepmother as they documented their journey online.
It is Sunday morning, 29th of September.
Leah Bradford expected her weekend to be in Asheville, helping her stepdaughter start a new life in Raleigh.
Every road we took, they were down power poles and power lines and down trees and one road.
Her stepdaughter's life nearly washed away by Helene. Their plans and communication immediately washed away with it.
Without her having cellular service and not being able to contact her, it was, a little unnerving.
The Bradfords didn't hesitate.
We're headed to Asheville to get our girl.
And immediately hit the road.
We need to get her.
Documenting their treacherous trip on TikTok and the anxiety no family wants to feel.
There was an RV park that was completely underwater. It was just nothing but water. It was just devastating.
Their trip a success.
We have our car full of all of our daughter's things.
Success marked by a rainbow at the end of their journey, a signal of the relief she hopes comes to others.
And my heart just goes out to them because the unknown is just terrible.
Hundreds of families, just like the Bradfords,
is just hard to wrap your mind around.
Left with no choice but to restart their lives.
Laura Shelton also traveled hundreds of miles to Burnsville to check on her family after mudslides tore through that area. Here's Nick Sturdivant with that story.
I caught up with Laura Shelton earlier as she was on the road.
And then I started seeing pictures coming out on Facebook Friday morning. And I started to get really worried.
Headed to the airport, booking a one-way flight from Houston, Texas to Charlotte, so she can eventually make her way to Burnsville, her hometown, which is about 40 minutes north of Asheville. There, her mother and grandparents.
I got word Sunday morning that there had been a mudslide behind my family's house. And so as a result, I thought my family was dead. Like, I had not heard anything.
After combing through social media,
I even messaged my high school algebra teacher.
Have you been able to get in contact with them, hear from them, hear their voices?
So I haven't heard their voices, but I got a text message on my way home yesterday, and I just started bawling.
She received a message from her mom letting her know that they are okay.
Her and her dad, you know, they're from Burnsville, North Carolina. He had a store that got wiped away. She lives on Little Creek in Burnsville, North Carolina, and her whole entire house is gone.
Yvette Faye says she's working to help support her friend Layla's family after she says they lost everything to the storm. The App State student and Miss High Country and America's United States brand ambassador says she's also working to spread awareness about what her hometown is going through.
There's people in these communities, small towns, like you get into Newland, there's people who live in hollers like such as I do, and you're not hearing anything from them for days because they have no power.
Is there anything you want folks to know, to hear?
The small towns in North Carolina need your help.
Helene destroyed hundreds of roads across the Carolinas, including Interstate 40 near the North Carolina-Tennessee border. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says it will be months before crews are able to repair that stretch of interstate.
Yeah, I-40 is a clear priority. There are also still parts of I-26 that are compromised, although I was pleased to see how much of that got back up and running by yesterday. We estimate over 400 roads still closed and are engaging with North Carolina's DOT to address them. It's difficult to overstate how profound and widespread the damage is here. And so there's a lot of prioritization that's going to have to go on. Our department's role is largely to make sure that funding is not a barrier. So North Carolina's DOT has signaled to us that they are going to file for what's called emergency relief. That opens up a fund that we can use to provide some of the dollars to get that done. And that can go to everything from preparation and certain kinds of debris removal to getting on with the reconstruction. The latest estimates I've seen from North Carolina's DOT suggest it is months at minimum before there is a full restoration of I-40, but we have seen in many disasters around the country how temporary solutions can be applied to try to get vehicles moving. That's part of what we'll provide technical assistance on, working with the DOT in-state to get as much back to normal as quickly as possible.
Lynnville Falls was also a hard-hit area. Flash floods brought down huge trees and decimated that area. Amber Lake is there with the latest.
There's a family in Lynnville Falls that was so close to having their entire home completely demolished. You see, there's this gully that is directly beside the house, and whenever the floodwaters started coming through, this gully expanded and the waters got higher and higher. You can see just how high they got by zooming into the bottom of that tree. That's how high the water was flowing through this area. And whenever the waters kept rising, it started bringing down these large branches and trees all the way down this river. And it was headed straight towards the home. And it was by the grace of God that the home wasn't completely destroyed.
This is a terrible situation. I mean, me and my son watched this landslide come down towards our house, and luckily we had junk cars that are setting up above us that kind of diverted everything the other way. You know, it's a terrible situation to be in.
I stepped into the gully beside the home. It was crazy to see just how high the waters got and to hear from Ben McCall Jr., who explained what the family experienced and how these large trees and branches almost hit their home. I can't even imagine going through something like that. Whenever you looked out your back porch, you said that you, your son, your grandson were watching, you know, the trees and the water wash down beside your home. What kind of go through your head when you see something like that?
Well, we just thought that was going to be it, that the house would be next to wash away. So we, as quickly as we could, we ran over to my garage, which is more on a little hill and didn't have a lot of trees behind it. So we felt like we would be safer there. So we went and spent the remainder of the storm there until we made sure everything was okay.
Avery County is still under a state of emergency, mainly because so many roads are still impassable. I spoke with a woman who lives a little farther away from here, and she says that because the roads are so bad, power trucks can't get into the area. She was told that she probably won't have power for at least 4 more weeks. Reporting in Lynnville Falls, I'm Amber Lake.
Thousands in Ashe County still without power or running water, but the people there say they're amazed by the outpouring of support. Much of Lansing was destroyed, including the main strip. One store owner told WCNC Charlotte's Austin Walker owning this space was a dream.
The Lansing Trading Company is known for making a mark.
We've got 2 Etsy shops.
Embroidery and screen printing on just about anything.
All of it's pretty dresses.
But Helene left its own mark.
So water line, we measured yesterday, it was 96 inches.
Water pouring in, filling every crevice.
But you know, it's...
For Amy Blevins, it was a dream of expanding out of their home and into a store.
5 embroidery machines, and then Wednesday, we signed papers on our first industrial-sized embroidery machines. And they were delivered Thursday.
Now puckered, a dream turns to disaster.
Equipment and inventory were probably about $250,000.
Probably about 30 minutes.
It's more than just a family affair Wednesday.
One of our preacher friends reached out and they brought a huge truckload today.
I mean, we've had people give us wads of money, just give it to us and trying to get us help. And it's just been very humbling.
Working to stitch their lives back together.
You're in God's country, so.
The thread of support weaves throughout Lansing.
Honestly, I've got chill bumps just talking about it.
Where someday Blevins will continue to leave her family's mark.
After devastating flooding from Helene, the only entrance to one Fairview home is up a steep embankment. Abby Ham has more.
The path through Fairfield is bleak, ravaged by rising waters on Cane Creek.
We're just trying to clear right on the underside edge of the bridge.
Neighbors doing the hard work themselves.
We live on the hill up here. I don't know how I can see it. I got some rope from the neighbors and put a little rappelling system to go up about, say, 22 feet of stretch here.
The bridge on Philip Buddha Morgan's property washed away, and this is his only way in and out.
Got a double line system for better grip here. Got to do gloves or else you're going to get some rope burn.
Morgan is doing all of this for a very good reason.
Yeah, my brother had a stroke roughly about 10 years ago now. He's bedridden, limited mobility. He's running on a oxygen compressor right now.
Morgan showed me
Just please watch your step.
Exactly what he's up against.
It's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. Especially you do it multiple times a day, it'll take a toll.
Oh, this is your house? This is what it takes to help his family and neighbors.
There's more elderly people here. I'm probably the most able-bodied person on this mountain.
All of this and all that matters to Morgan is that his family and friends are okay.
Still just in the back of my mind amongst doing all the stuff I have to do, I'm just waiting to hear something about losing someone and that's been a hard one. That's one that just kind of creeps up on you at night when you try to get to sleep.
There has been an overwhelming amount of support pouring into the Tar Heel State. Each corner of the Carolinas, and even more expansive than that, every corner of the country is pitching in for these people who are left with little or nothing at all. Vanessa Rufus shows us some of the efforts coming from the air.
After flights to Asheville and Ashe County, this plane is back for another run. From sunup to sundown, these pilots go until they can't any longer.
God, there's people up there that are starving, they can't get out.
Volunteer Josh Wayne is one of dozens of volunteers here to load up donations from across the Carolinas into these planes.
A lot of my friends came. We're here volunteering to help as much as we can. Everything a little bit helps.
Adding to a rescue buzz that's become the soundtrack for Hickory Regional ever since Helene hit. The bustle also bringing the community to watch.
The whole country's so divided right now. Everyone is like either left or right, and this brought a lot of people together.
Donnie McCall was among those who came to sneak a peek and says he's in awe of the aviation mission underway, even in the face of heartbreak. This is his sister's home in Avery County. The water up to the roof. Thankfully, she and her husband evacuated.
And they're happy to be alive, but they're sad, you know, especially for the community too.
And our chief meteorologist, Brad Pandovich, was one of many working to connect donations this week. He held a backyard donation drive. Take a look.
Hey everybody, this is our backyard collection. These are my kids, Kyler and Kinley. And I'll show you, this is the first truck. This was only the plan to begin with. This was truck number one. Open it up, guys. Kind of show you how much we stuffed this one. This is a 15-foot truck. Guys at U-Haul have been amazing. They've been giving us extra days, upgrading our trucks. So this is how it started, a small truck. We thought maybe 50 boxes, 100 boxes. And then it quickly escalated yesterday as the UPS and Amazon trucks continued to come to my house. And eventually we had to get this 20-foot truck over here. So we almost filled this one completely up as well. So we've got a 15-foot truck and a 20-foot truck with all the items for Operation Airdrop. All my neighbors stepping up and really helping out tremendously. It's just been absolutely amazing. And one of my neighbors, Jeremy Slane, I want Jeremy, talk a little bit about why you got involved with this.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Brad and Tammy started this grassroots idea about bringing goods to the people in Western North Carolina. Kind of as a neighborhood, it started growing and people spread the links, and it turned from 50 boxes to 500 boxes to 1,000 boxes. And we just came together as a neighborhood and wanted to make sure that we were able to split stuff out and get it consolidated in the boxes so that it could get into people's hands and that we could get them as much help as possible.
Yeah, so it's just been amazing. It's like this is happening all over Charlotte and the Carolinas. Small groups like us are starting small and then building and sending it all to the west. Operation Airdrop's going to get most of this stuff, but I actually have another truck we're working on that we're going to take directly, hopefully, over to Rutherford County, working with local officials at church over there and Lowe's. That's a whole nother story, which I'll show you along the ways as we get that kind of to some people in Western North Carolina as well. But the community has been amazing. Thank you so much. This is really what NC Strong is all about.
And in the last week, Lowe's launched the biggest relief effort ever in the company's history. But it's what some of their workers are doing to help these communities impacted that may be even more meaningful, especially in Boone. WCNC Charlotte's Michelle Bowden has that part of our story.
Workers from the store here in Charlotte raced to help their colleagues there in Boone on Friday, where at one point the water was waist high. Now, cell service still pretty spotty, so they actually sent us their interviews so that we could use them, because wait until you hear what they had to say, what they went through just to get that store open for customers. It was a lot.
Looking at these pictures of the heart of Boone, it is hard to imagine digging out of this mess. The Lowe's store in Boone is just minutes from App State, and store manager Chris Reynolds told us what it was like on Friday when a creek near the store came rushing in the store.
Our parking lot started flooding, and then we had a flash flood rip in after that from the greenway next to our store. Quite a few inches of water came into the store along with silt, mud, and shut us down for a while. It got so deep at one point in the parking lot, it was up to my waist.
Within hours, Reynolds says coworkers from across the area rushed to help.
Luckily, I had a lot of great peers over in Charlotte that came up to rescue us that evening. And I know that they and several other teams worked tirelessly through the night and made sure that we were ready to open in the morning and safe for the customers.
With so much damage across the town of Boone, Reynolds says customers were at the store first thing in the morning, desperate for supplies.
We took care of them at the front door, just one at a time. It wasn't safe for them to come inside the building, but I wanted to make sure that they had everything they needed so that they could, save their homes in a lot of ways. So it's really a privilege for me to be able to serve this community and make sure that we're taking care of the people that take care of us every day.
In addition to the $2 million they've already pledged, Lowe's is also doing their famous bucket brigades across the Southeast. That's where they literally pass out buckets full of supplies in the impacted areas. If you know anyone or if you personally need help, we've got information on that, where you can find those bucket brigades. That's on our website, WCNC.com. Reporting in Charlotte, Michelle Bowden, WCNC Charlotte.
Over the last few days, we've seen so many of you step up to the plate, help people who are still cut off from the outside world and need essentials. And you don't even know those folks, right? They're complete strangers. The need isn't going to end anytime soon, and we want to make that clear. So if you're able to donate or volunteer, please scan the QR code on the screen for more information about how you can help. There are many, many ways. As recovery efforts continue, the state of North Carolina is touting its fast response to Helene, quickly sending more than $1 million in FEMA benefits to survivors. Almost 60,000 people have already applied for federal help, and those numbers are expected to rise. Questions remain, though, as to whether state officials can keep this same level of urgency up. As WCNC Charlotte's Nate Morabito explains, the state has a recent history of being too slow in helping hurricane survivors in the long term.
All you have to do is look back to the impacts of Hurricanes Matthew and Florence. Those storms hit in 2016 and 2018, destroying homes and displacing people in the eastern part of North Carolina. The state created a program in the aftermath meant to help people repair and rebuild. But that program has crept along. Right now, North Carolina's efforts are focused on helping meet the immediate needs of those who lost the most in western North Carolina.
We are working to remove any barrier to making this as quick as possible.
State Emergency Management Communications Chief Justin Graney says that means eliminating any bureaucracy that could slow things down. He's optimistic about this response.
We are in a good place moving forward already with the major disaster declaration.
Hopefully a positive sign moving forward, because survivors can't afford to see the state repeat past mistakes, like when it's time to rebuild.
We learn from every disaster, just like we've learned from Hurricane Florence, Hurricane Matthew.
For some on the other side of the state who survived those hurricanes, the recovery still continues today, many years later.
It's not enough. It's not enough for anybody who's sitting behind me. It's not enough for anyone in eastern North Carolina. It's not enough for anyone sitting in front of me.
Those words came just 2 years ago from the head of North Carolina's Office of Recovery and Resiliency, an agency created by the governor after Hurricane Florence.
I said last time, I think the job that Encore's done has been unacceptable.
In a 2022 oversight hearing recorded by our content partner WRAL, lawmakers repeatedly called into question the agency's slow progress in helping past hurricane victims rebuild. While the state has made strides since, records show more than a third of homes remain unfinished. As of late September, more than 1,600 projects were still not labeled complete.
None of those are being paused because of this storm. We are continuing all of those disaster recovery efforts.
As the state works to fulfill its promise to victims of Matthew and Florence, North Carolina now has the responsibility of helping those devastated by Helene, too. FEMA's administrator is in North Carolina and says she'll remain here until things are stabilized. She pledged the federal government will be there to support the state long term, working to eliminate any red tape and ensure there are no delays, both now and in the future. Nate Morabito, WCNC Charlotte.
One gas station in Shelby has become a refuge for those escaping western North Carolina this week. Kaylin Hagwood was there, hearing the stories from those heading east.
Well, for the dozens of people coming from Asheville and other parts of western North Carolina, this gas station has actually been a lifeline for them who say they are just finally able to get gas. It's one of the many resources that they say they have been without, feeling thankful that they can get it, but also wanting to get back to help others still left behind. For many families, this long gas station line in Shelby actually brought a sigh of relief. It was the first gas station with fuel they'd seen in miles after Helene devastated parts of western North Carolina.
It's about 30 cars in this line. It's been like that for like 2 days now.
After traveling from Asheville, Brennan Kopp joined the line on foot, afraid their car wouldn't make it any further.
One of the cars is on fumes, and when we pulled in, we saw the line.
He says they don't have any drinking water back home, a struggle Sarah Craven and her friends share.
We were stuck in our hotel from Friday morning until Sunday morning with no power, no running water.
They took these photos while fleeing the Asheville area. You can see the downed trees and power lines, just part of their worries.
We've got some friends waiting in line to get gas right now, and they drove back to help us with 2 or 3 gas tanks so that we could get out.
From Shelby to Gastonia, where another gas station was met with a fleeing traveler.
We live in a community who has primarily been cut off. There's still a lot of people we haven't gained access to.
Hannah Taylor lives in Transylvania County, about an hour from Asheville. They're getting what they can while processing all they've lost.
We have a high water mark in our barn that has never exceeded 5 feet. It was well into our loft, over 14 feet high. We lost our hay. We were able to rescue our animals.
Despite how challenging it has been for these families over the last couple of days, many have been coming together, gathering what they can so when they go back, they can take those resources to others who are in need. Reporting in Shelby, Kaylin Hagwood, WCNC Charlotte.
And in the aftermath of Helene, travelers to western North Carolina are also among those impacted, many of them having to rethink their plans. Among them, a Charlotte woman who says she was denied a refund for a booking in one of the hardest hit areas. She asked WCNC Charlotte's Jane Monreal, where's the money?
The woman booked with Verbo and said the host would not give her money back until she told him she was talking to us. She shared her experience with me, saying others are in the same position and it's just not right. Brittany Jackson had booked a home through Verbo for this upcoming weekend.
Yes, so our daughter is a sophomore at Western Carolina University there in Cullowhee. It is family weekend this weekend.
After Helene hit, she reached out to the host about the reservation.
Once NCDOT announced that travel should be restricted to the area just for safety reasons, that's when we requested the refund.
Jackson says the host's response was that they should have purchased insurance.
This is, a natural disaster that came through, and I almost felt like he was taking advantage of the situation. So that is when I kept pushing.
At first, she says the host agreed to a 50% refund and the other 50% as a credit.
So I kept pushing, contacted VRBO, and unfortunately, VRBO's hands were slightly tied just simply because the host was handling the bookings on his end.
Fortunately, she pushed and got her $1,700 back.
Yes, we finally, after we stated that we reached out to the news, he changed a tune and refunded all of our money. So thankfully.
What does that tell you?
That tells me that he was willing to take advantage of the situation. The roads, some of the roads are missing. People have lost their lives. People are still missing. And the fact that he was adamant that we come to the area and put not only ourselves, but first responders at risk.
I reached out to Verbo myself. The Expedia Group Verbo spokesperson says they are aware the host agreed to provide Jackson with a full refund. Verbo also refunded her service fee. As for their emergency policy impacting travelers, Verbo has also activated the extenuating circumstances policy, allowing for more full refunds and waived service fees. That's for eligible reservations. We'll put that link with more of the company's efforts for impacted areas on our website, WCNC.com. Back to you.
Many North Carolina homeowners are struggling with the flooding from Helene, maybe in even, no, Colin. 3, 2, 1. Many North Carolina homeowners are struggling with the flooding from Helene. They may be in an even tougher spot tonight if they don't have flood insurance coverage. So we wanted to look at whether flood insurance comes with most coverage plans. And if you don't have it, who can help here? WCNC Charlotte's Megan Bragg verifies.
Well, these 25 counties are under a state of emergency, meaning FEMA will help those who were affected by floodwater. So if you are not on this list, will your insurance cover this? The question, do homeowners and renters insurance policies typically cover flood damage?
Our source is North Carolina Flood Insurance, the Insurance Information Institute, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and insurance companies Allstate and Amica. Homeowners insurance is a way to repair or rebuild your home after something bad happens. Homeowners insurance, along with renters, also helps cover the cost to replace your belongings. When you buy a policy, insurance companies will give you a detailed list of what is and isn't covered. The major insurance companies we checked with say flooding isn't covered in standard policies, but you can purchase separate flood insurance from a private company or a policy that's backed by FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program. North Carolina Flood Insurance says most homeowners insurance policies only cover damage caused by threats like fires, windstorms, hail, lightning, and theft or vandalism. So no, homeowners and renters insurance policies do not typically cover flood damage. Flood insurance policies usually require you to purchase them at least 30 days before they take effect. If you didn't buy coverage ahead of time, FEMA also offers some assistance to people who live in areas that receive a residential disaster declaration, but it's typically much less than what flood insurance would cover.
Now, if you are in these counties listed on your screen, we do have ways that you can apply for FEMA assistance on our webpage, WCNC.com. With Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
There are still communities we know without power in remote areas, might I add, trying to connect with emergency services or with loved ones. That is where amateur radio operators come in handy here, helping get the word out and make those connections possible. WCNC Charlotte's Jesse Pierre spoke to one operator about how those efforts help families in need.
Helene knocked out power in counties across the state, and when modern technology fails, what some consider ancient technology like two-way radio now proves to be most reliable. When disaster strikes,
this is an absolutely devastating storm,
and families are left in the dark,
we have a specific mission, and that mission is to provide emergency communications when needed.
Operators of amateur radio, also known as ham radio, step into the light to help.
We don't need modern technology on amateur radio. We need a battery, we need a generator, something just to power a radio, and you can have communication anywhere in the world.
Dan Gittro is making connections from his home, conducting welfare checks and broadcasting emergency updates.
We are still taking reports of people that are in areas that have not heard from any sort of first response. These people are still in desperate need of food and water in these harder hit areas.
A network Callan Holmes says she is grateful for. Her 93-year-old grandfather lives in Cedar Mountain.
They had lost power. We knew that. We had tried to get in touch with them.
Holmes' father and brother decided to make the drive from Alabama to get him, and it was ham radio that helped them navigate.
Listening to the ham radio, writing down every single street that they could take. A lot of reports were coming over the air saying, this road's closed on the map, but it's actually open.
Allowing them to safely make it there and back.
Hearing that they were alive and well was so great. Seeing him in person was amazing. I was able to give him a big hug.
Stories that fuel operators like Gittro.
As long as there's a need out there, I'll be right here in this seat to help those folks.
Jesse Pierre, WCNC Charlotte.
In Boone, some found comfort in crisis. The community there gathering over a warm meal, a sigh of relief for many, those impacted who haven't had hot food in days. Sean Martinelli has the story.
We were drawn into this restaurant by the music. We stayed because of the mission.
A lot of love here.
Elena Dalton is the executive director of Downtown Boone's Farm Cafe.
Farm stands for feed all regardless of means.
It's the oldest pay-what-you-want cafe in North Carolina. As Hurricane Helene flooded much of this region with water, it flooded nonprofits like this with need.
One couple Saturday that were covered in mud that were in their home when a landslide took out everything except the room they were in.
Guests arrive from those situations to find a warm meal, warm conversations, and warm hugs.
A lot of people are hurting.
What keeps you going?
This community.
People like Katrina Grebenchikova. She spent 2 days trying to contact her mom. As phone calls went unanswered, Katrina's thoughts became bleak.
So much uncertainty, not much hope.
Eventually, Katrina got the call. Her mom was safe. At this table and throughout this restaurant, hope is back.
There you go, you're welcome. In our day and age, it is a little sad how we are a little disconnected, and it takes a natural disaster to really bring people together and emphasize the importance of having a community. I think people just need a place to be. They just need other people right now.
And that's what this place is.
That's what we hope it can be.
A place where appetites are filled and weary souls nourished. From Boone, Sean Martinelli, WCNC Charlotte.
They are saying they feel cut off from the rest of the world. The county is difficult to get to and communication is nearly non-existent. But during this tragedy, we're seeing a community come together like never before. It's changed lives. And for one man, his life changed in an unexpected way.
Water flows through a community. Its path leaving behind a trail of destruction.
It was massively devastating.
Donald Thacker drives around his town.
The carnage. This house got flooded.
Taking it all in. The floods uprooting houses, destroying everything in its path.
But we're alive. We lost everything, but we're alive.
His Aunt Yvonne recalls the moment it started, when it seeped inside.
For a moment, it was just like, how is this even possible? How is this even possible? And just because it was literally like, it was maybe an hour where we thought the worst was over. And then all of a sudden, we were in a way worse situation.
Thacker, an injured Afghanistan veteran, in what he thought was his last moments.
We were able to get a text out, and we told our loved ones we love them, and we'll see you on the other side.
Turning to a higher power.
That house stood. That house saved us. God saved us.
The water devastating, and for Thacker, turning it into something else.
The gentleman from the church in Charlotte showed up, and we started talking Jesus, and we had been waiting to baptize me, and they said, "Do you want to do it now?"
Thacker lowered into the very floodwaters that took everything.
Straight out by that rock in the middle of the river.
A moment of reflection.
God brought us through. This didn't test my faith, this confirmed it.
It's an element that destroyed.
This, surviving this, when so many people didn't. I ain't got nothing but to thank God.
But also saved.
WCNC Charlotte will be with you in the aftermath of this storm. That's our promise. You can find our continuing coverage on your own time here on WCNC Plus, online at WCNC.com, and on your phone on the WCNC Charlotte mobile app. I'm Colin Mayfield. Thank you and stay safe.